Ms. Martinez in, and if you read the disposition report, or so-called disposition report, you'd understand why she's not up for talking today. She is the victim in that case. That's extremely significant. You didn't see Cherish Periwinkle or Jordan Davis have a disposition report where they were victimized further. So the other side of that is, to the extent that she has a past that involves bipolar disorder, suicide, psychological issues, you don't publicly put that on the town square. And because of those two reasons, because Mr. Manti, Assistant State Attorney Manti, has appeared essentially in both cases, where he is prosecuting Officer Borisade as a victim, or made an appearance in Ms. Martinez's case, and the contrary is true in Ms. Martinez's case, Officer Borisade's case. We are asking for a special prosecutor to take over this case. We are going to make that application to the governor today. We think that given the issues, given that there is an election, given that things are getting caught up in an election where you have public officials of this town going after each other instead of doing what they need to be doing, that it's time for a special prosecutor to come in. We are also asking for the FDLE and the Department of Justice to take a look at all that's going on in Jacksonville.
U.S. Department of Justice, you're asking?
Correct. We've reached a level where, like the back page of the Folio Weekly I wrote this week, where I'm worried about where we're headed as a city. We've got too many issues that are going unaddressed. This started as an incident in a parking lot that then turned into an incident in the jail that, as you'll see today, and we learned very recently, turned into an incident inside the jail. And it's been incident after incident, or misrepresentation after misrepresentation since then. That disposition report was full of half-truths, quoting barbacks that run the day shift at a gentleman's club. Way more than you're quoting reputable people such as medical doctors in this town that could have been interviewed. And again, not to belabor the point, but we don't appreciate the victimization of the victim. We are providing each of you with one of two things, either a zip drive with several items on it, or a link to Dropbox download that. Within that link are several things. First of all, are screen grabs of all three incidents. You guys can do that yourself, but we went ahead and pulled the ones that we had. Second is a full statement by the integrity unit of Officer Borisade. You will hear him speak. You will hear him speak very emotionally about what happened. And what I'd like the people to do, that this is, Miss Martinez's laundry is being aired out, is to compare notes. Compare to what Officer Borisade said, a remorseful man, versus what's characterized in this incident. We've also releasing the relevant portion where he's discussing the incidents of Officer Vickery. Officer Vickery is the officer that was with Borisade at the first scene in the parking lot. Officer Vickery is also very emotional when he describes this. He describes a level of violence such that he even called his own supervisor to report it. The disposition report seems to gloss over all of that and act as if there was no crime committed at the first scene. There was. There are at minimum, and that's the other thing. Even if you decide that this is simple battery, which is an unwanted touching, even if you decide that this is two simple batteries, at minimum, if you just look at Officer Borisade. We would argue that it's two felony batteries. So there's that. So you're going to hear from Officer Vickery, you're going to hear from Officer Borisade, and then we've decided to release, since it's so misrepresentatively described, release the whatever happened inside the jail. The quick rundown of that is, once Ms. Martinez was awoken and walked inside for processing, she put her hands on the wall and did the whole thing. Do you have any metal on you? She was frisked. She had earrings in her ears, the stud that everybody's seen in her nose, which cannot actually be easily removed, and she also had a belly button ring. And not being the shy person that she is, being in a secure facility, she was asked to remove her belly button ring. She pulls down her top to remove her belly button ring. The corrections officer takes exception to that, and then I'm not going to describe the rest. You can see it for yourself. The photos that we have behind us show a couple of screen grabs from there where what appears to us is Ms. Martinez getting drugged down by her hair, naked. 5 or 6 male officers then come in and restrain her, change her and put her into cuffs, one-piece restraints. So there's a lot more to the story, and we're tired of asking for things and not getting them. It emphasizes the need for a special prosecutor here. It's the first time in my career that I've ever gotten a disposition report on any of my victims where my victims are apparently the bad guys. It hurts me as a professional. It hurts me as a father. And there's no room for that in Jacksonville. If we're truly going to unite, if we're truly going to come together, we need to do this from leadership down. Great.
I mean, I would just add that it's particularly troubling in this case when you have an assistant state attorney who comes out and attacks what is truly a victim in his case. And by all accounts, in reviewing that interview and the information provided in this disposition notice, that it leaves little doubt that Mr. Manti took it upon himself to act as Officer Borisade's defense lawyer, as opposed to the prosecutor. And as a defense attorney who likes to put faith in the state attorney's office that they do have integrity. And things like that. It's just very disappointing, both professionally and as a member of the community, that officers are not being held to the same standard as the citizens, as we as citizens are held.
We have provided medical records to you all if you need. If you haven't gotten them, we're happy to give them to you, which is kind of ridiculous. We feel like we have to do, but since this matter is so public, Mayra still can't feel her fingers. If that's not an injury that none of us would want, a great injury to all of us, I don't know what is. On top of that, she's consulting with a surgeon next week. I can pull a little bulging and herniated disc for you guys, and we can go over. I make a joke that I'm not a doctor, but I play one in this conference room, of her 6 disc injuries. Anybody that's been in a major car wreck knows that those are not painful and they do not go away. She's got constant neck and back pain. If you take what has been described as her past with the PTSD, the prior rape, and things that I just don't want to dwell on, and you now let what happened in these videos play out, you kind of see why she reacted the way she reacted. You kind of get a little bit more understanding of what's happened. And what instead we have is assistant state attorneys acting as if that 20 minutes was insignificant and it was just a simple unwanted touching. It was multiple unwanted touchings. It was multiple unwanted touchings that caused great bodily harm. And again, that's where we stand. If you'd like, we have 2 versions of the in-house video, the third scene as we call it. One of them is the full version from the time she walks in to the time she walks out, unedited. The second version is just the zoomed in version of the bathroom. That's the part that we find to be most significant. Otherwise, it's a corrections officer and Ms. Martinez kind of arguing about her piercings. So it's 4 minutes long. If you'd like for me to play that, I can play that. If you want to just wait and get it yourself, that's fine too. I'm waiting for one head to nod. There it is. So, in case you have questions while we're here, too.
Can you walk us through what's happening?
Certainly. So this is after, before I started, this is after there was a question of an argument over can she take out her nose ring. Ultimately, she says, I can't. Call a doctor, call the nurse, find out that there's issues. She discusses this in her statement that will be released later. We didn't release everything we have because we have depositions to take. We released the stuff that most specifically addresses the largest level of disagreement, I'll put it nicely, in the disposition report. So this is after Mayra has argued over the rings, went to take out her belly button ring. The other edit that we did do to both videos is for our client's privacy sake, we did put the black box covering the areas that were sensitive. So she's told to go into the bathroom. She takes off her clothes. She's going to throw them down fairly aggressively. And then you'll see the corrections officer move in, grab her by the hair, put her nearly naked on the ground, and then 5 male officers or 6 male officers will come in to further detain her.
Some of which have smirks on their faces.
Right.
As they're exiting the room.
At the end, and I think it's cropped out, but at the end, one of the officer picks up what I believe to be her thong panties and kind of does this at another officer from across the hall. Again, this is not the city that I want to live in if this is how we treat any of our people.
Based on your professional experience, is this standard procedure to try to take down what they claim is a combative inmate?
Certainly, this is a inmate who's been passed out and unconscious for 15 minutes. There's other policies and procedures I think they could have taken, but this is how they're justifying it. It's interesting if you read the narrative reports issued, every one of these officers, most of these officers give minute by minute accounts. You don't see any of them taking notes, but they'll give 8 minutes after the hour, 9 minutes after the hour. She was combative, she was combative, she was combative. And none of that happened minute by minute, officer by officer, any time before this. They just knew that this is the third time, and it was on video. I don't think their accounts match what's on the video. Again, this case is you don't have to read Hart's word, John Phillips's word, any of the parties' words necessarily. To some extent, yes, that she's injured, but there's video of all 3 scenes. And there's a line or two in the disposition report which basically mock the Good Samaritan that had the dash cam and say he should have given that straight to the police. He shouldn't be recording, if it's even authentic. Who says that dash cam was made up? Who is he trying to accuse of impropriety here? So you'll see now as they start to file out, maybe. There's 3 minutes of just kind of that. So I'm going to fast forward and see if we get to, we don't. All right, let me go to that one real quick.
Have you ever before in your career, John, been involved in a case where this much video was released from inside JSO's, Sally Port, inside the jail?
We have not, and I'd suspect it's a pretty rare thing. I would hope it's a rare thing. So here's, go ahead, Rudy.
So John, they make a quite something of her reliability in the disposition report, and I wonder what your thoughts are about that relative to the fact that a lot of it is on video.
Exactly, and that's the point where I don't know that it's relevant. Certainly to the extent that we're making claims of a soft tissue ambulance chasing, skeptical nature. We get that. We represent car wreck victims too, and you hear, they're not really that hurt. They were hit at 2 miles an hour. I get that if that's this case, but there were forces put on her at multiple scenes. There's bruising. There are evidence photos that will be released taken the night after that show the level of bruising. Most of you have seen it. There's a circular bruise on her breast that was tremendous in there weeks later, and there are MRIs. And to say now there's a car wreck 13 years before, whatever it was, that now is the mysterious cause when there is zero evidence to go on that there was any injury in that car wreck, it's just sensational. She did a bad thing when she was a teenager, and we stringently disagree with their facts on that. But it's thank God we didn't have the state attorney's office doing this to, again, Cherish Periwinkle, Jordan Davis, any of the other victims that they've represented. There is video, there are doctor's records, there are going to continue to be doctor's records. And whether a special prosecutor needs to take another look at this, or they impanel a grand jury just for a day to look at these 3 videos, I'll be fine if I get that answer. We know what they say about grand juries, but I'll be more than happy to have that rather than a prosecutor designated to handle police cases and hasn't really found officers to have done wrong in the city.
John, you obviously dealt with the state attorney's office before when you were representing Ron and Lucy. You dealt with them on a regular basis. Does this strike you as a different state attorney's office than you dealt with before? And has there been a noticeable change in your perspective?
I'm disturbed by the political season, and I don't know if there's motivation in that, and I don't want to level those accusations other than we've all seen video of the back and forth between Miss Corey and Mr. Shirk and others, and it's only getting nastier, and I'm trying to stay out of the political race. I'm not a politician. We don't put signs in our office yard, but it's. And I don't want to talk about personal phone calls that I've gotten related to this incident, but I will talk about the calls that I haven't gotten. And I haven't seen much acceptance of liability other than in press conference right after where Sheriff Williams so rightly says, we did wrong, we're going to address it. And then his state attorneys and his other officers and his integrity unit does some things that make me question. You'll see in some of the videos of Officer Borisade, this integrity unit asks some questions that they're trying almost to pull out the answers that they want. They want a certain narrative, it seems to me. That's my opinion, and they're going for that. And so I don't hold press conference. I think this is the second one that I've had with y'all all here, and the other one was related to Schneider when he was arrested. But thank God we didn't see 11 or however many of those victims, 14 victims, of what they did when they were 5 years old. You just don't see it. And Reed's dealt with it from the criminal defense side. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but there has been a change. Yeah, good.
Is we know JSO has formulated a new transparency effort. Do you think the release of the disposition statement by the state attorney's office was an effort to be transparent and provide the facts, or do you believe it was meant to be a smear campaign?
I believe the latter. And in response to a question that was asked earlier regarding comments on her reliability and credibility, with so much captured on video, I don't think it's anything more than a bare attempt by the assistant state attorney handling a case in which she is a victim to denigrate and humiliate her unnecessarily, and using sensitive information to do so by way of mental health history and information that was gained from inside the jail, both during the medical aspect and during an interview with Integrity that came after she had invoked her right to an attorney. Because everything is on video and otherwise the injuries are documented and can be reviewed by medical experts, the attacks on her credibility are, as I said, nothing more than an attempt to humiliate her and get ahead of this in defense of the officer. And the fact that it's coming from the prosecutor who is prosecuting the officer in theory is particularly troubling for the legal community to know that these officers clearly are not being held to the same standard and are not being forced to accept responsibility for their actions as he should in this situation. And so I just think it's sickening.
And the other side of it is we didn't get the disposition report. We weren't sent this. We represent the victim. We didn't get it until one of you guys sent it to us, and we appreciate that. But again, that's how we got the original video. I think it was released on YouTube. We represent the victim, and we represent somebody charged with a crime. To media saying, hey, did you ask for this report? What? We don't even know what a disposition report is. There's not one done. Okay, well, we're going to send it to you.
So there'd be people in the community that maybe wouldn't understand your suggestion that the prosecution or the state attorney's office has an interest.
There's going to Officer Borisade was the arresting officer. Officer Vickery was the arresting officer. And so not only do you gain relationships with that, not only do you see the FOP and the sheriff's endorsements being very important in prosecution races, but there's relationships that are built through that, and it's not 90 some odd % of police officers are just out trying to do a good job. I'll say that every hour that I speak on this topic. But when you have bad officers, and you have a state as large as the state of Florida, and the statistical almost impossibility of a